council as an organisation is very well stocked with data around adult social care. So things like who's receiving adult social care, what types of services they're receiving, when they were assessed, how often they were referred to service and things like that. And what the council is relatively poor on is the resources, the tools and techniques to actually mine and sort of get really, really good value out of the data in the way that an academic institution might be able to by applying sort of new and novel techniques to it. So the thing that we saw would be really, really useful would be to try to get a group of academics, a multidisciplinary group of academics, to actually work with the data set that we had and use that to try and identify groups of people who were at high risk of going into a residential or nursing home in the relatively near future. And doing that would result in a model that does risk stratification, which enables you to actually take a population of people who's receiving a service or some kind of support from adult social care and say, this is the group of people that you can potentially keep in their community, keep in a community setting, keep in their own homes where we know they're happier for a longer amount of time. And by identifying those groups of people, we can then improve the types of services that they receive, improve the type of care that they receive, and use that to keep them at home for longer and make them happy in the long term. This also, usefully, saves the council a little bit of money because we're avoiding paying for them to go into residential or nursing home in the near future.
This collaboration started with a project called QuantiCode, and in 2015, one of the main UK government research funders, the EPSRC, put out a call called Making Sense of Data. And my QuantiCode project was one of only 6 that were funded in that call, an incredibly competitive call with more than 100 projects applying to it. And QuantiCode was really very different because it was extremely cross-disciplinary with specialists from computer science, maths, geography, health, and ethics. We then got this substantial 4-year project funded, which included 7 public and private sector partners, one of whom was Leeds City Council. So the purpose of the project, the primary aim, was to further our knowledge about how to develop data mining and visualization techniques and tools. But in order to do that in a manner that produces methods that will work on real-world problems, we need to work with real-world data. And in fact, the problems that people like Will in the council come up with are far, far more challenging for our techniques than the problems that we would dream up if we just sat in our little academic ivory tower. So the win for us in doing fundamental research is that the research is motivated by real-world problems, made ever more difficult by the fact that it is making use of examples of real-world data.
There are an awful lot of risk stratification tools, whereas despite a number of attempts, no one has really actually developed a good quality risk stratification tool for adult social care. And I think from the QuantiCode project and the things that have followed on, we've got closer than anyone else has ever got to being able to identify and predict people who are at risk of going into residential or nursing home. Because you ended up getting some quite effective, some quite useful results, didn't you?
The problem was about finding a risk score for individuals in receipt of adult social care. So the problem as posed to us was one was risk stratification, and the other was trying to understand which kind of interventions we can make to extend people's stay at home.
But you're effectively good at identifying people who are at high risk, weren't you? So
we're very good at identifying people at very low risk and at very high risk. And then there was a middle ground, which we then discussed as a way, as a group that is of most interest for identifying how to help them to be independent for longer. the amount of information, the amount of knowledge we gathered over almost a year of working together was incredible and led to continued work on risk stratification, now involving, apart from Leeds, Calderdale Council as well. So, so kind of a case study in QuantiCode became a separate project funded by Impact Acceleration Account from EPSSC.
QuantiCode and the way that we've worked with Leeds City Council and the other key partners, I think has been exemplary from the outset, from the point when even we put the project team together for the proposal. It was very cross-disciplinary, staff from 5 different faculties, and as well as the 7 external collaborators. So our whole mindset was different. And then, of course, the personalities, the people involved are so very important to continuing to work in that friendly, cooperative, collaborative manner. I think one of the most important things is to be looking at things from other people's perspective. So from the very start, they were stating what their problems were. We were turning them into absolutely cutting edge research questions in statistical data mining and visualization. We took a co-design approach.
I think from my perspective, there are a number of different reasons why the project worked quite so well. One of them was that it was something the council really wanted to do at quite a strategic level. So, for example, we've got the Director of Adult Social Care has signed off on this, and also Tom Riordan, the Chief Executive Council, actually signed off on the original QuantiCode proposal. So, we've got that big strategic priority, which gives it a certain support. That all worked to our favour, and meant that we had the sort of support, the political support behind the programme to be able to do things like ensure data protection agreements are signed, data processing agreements are signed up and things.
You wouldn't believe how slick and quick both the university and the Leeds City Council were about coming up with a completely brand new data processing agreement to give us, to allow them to send to us, ticking all the official boxes, a considerable data set covering several years of anonymized individual level data to be held on our secure servers. Having very clear application level questions from the council written in their language, that helps to explain why the data needs to be shared with the university.
It was very, very useful for someone from the team that understood the data to be sitting in the Leeds Institute of Data Analytics a day every week. We spent quite a lot of time working with the team, getting the data into a reasonable structure.
So we are able to get his direct input on a weekly basis. Without that, we wouldn't be able to understand the data, wouldn't be able to understand how social care is organized. And that was crucial to formulating our mathematical problems to solve or statistical problems to solve.
My tip would be get your priorities aligned and make sure that the resources follow.
I'll give you 2. One is to work out how you can help each other at each step of the project. And secondly, always look out for ways where you can give quick wins and give help and value, even informally, to your collaborators, because the more that you make their life easy, the easier it will be for them to justify to their boss the time that they're inevitably putting into this project, and therefore, good virtue leads to even better virtue.